Hello everyone, I'm Teddy Mitchner of House Photography and welcome to TIFF TV. This week we're going to cover Photography 101 and I'm going to try my best for those who are beginners to break down the camera itself so we can understand what the camera is doing when we actually use the camera. So the camera is very simple. It's actually a small box. So I'm going to draw it, by the way, I'm going to draw it so you guys can see and try to break it down, really break it down as much as I can. So it's a small box, okay, with a hole in it, with specific functions that help us understand what's going on. Now, the camera actually has a special piece of glass which we call the lens. Okay. So the lens is what helps us focus on the object. Okay. Now, most cameras have a shutter button. All cameras actually have a shutter button, but most of them are put on the top of the camera. So we're going to put this as the shutter button on top of the camera. Okay. Now, the shutter button, when it's pressed, it opens like a door. So the shutter button actually opens shutters here. So I'm just going to show you the shutters. And this is just a small example on how it looks, right? It opens the shutters. Once you hit the shutter button, it opens the shutter this way, so they slide out of the way, right? And it allows light to come through the lens, through the hole. So through the lens, let's do this, dot, 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 through the hole and past the shutters. And once the shutter button is pressed, the shutter opens and closes very quickly, which is actually called shutter speed. And the shutter speed is what allows the time and how fast the light comes into the camera. So how fast the light jets into the lens here and comes through the hole here and hits the sensor. I'm just going to put the sensor here. We'll talk about that later. Okay, sensor, right? Okay, so now we have this hole. So this hole is what the small hole here is what you call an aperture ring. Most of you know this aperture ring as the iris. So what happens is the aperture ring is that hole that allows what amount of light come in. So if the amount of light is actually really small, the aperture ring is really small, then that means that a small amount of light comes into the aperture, okay? But if it's really big, a big amount of light comes into the aperture. So these are two different things that are different. The shutter speed, which is the speed of the light that comes into the camera, and then the aperture is the amount of light that comes into the camera. So with that said, we have the ring that can actually go big, so it can open up. It can open up even wider than this, right? And then it can close down as well, which is making it very, very small. So let's do it like, just a little bit of light can actually get through, okay? Now, in the past, we all used to use film. And when you would use the film cameras, the film would actually be at the back of the camera like this, okay? So what you would do is you will put the film in on one side, like this. Yes? And then you will pull the reel for this film strip to come out. Now, this film strip is what captures the image, which then turns into the negative. So these are your negatives, and these little small spots here, these little squares here, is what captures the image on the film. So in that case, this film, once it's actually the negative is actually pulled from the camera, it could be developed into prints and stuff like that. So you can take and put it on special paper. So the film was actually taken out of the camera and it was put into an enlarger. The enlarger actually shot light through the film so you can see the image, and then it would place that image on top of a special paper that basically burned the image into the paper. And then you would take the paper and you would take it through the washes and stuff like that, and then you would set it up to dry, and then you have your image. Okay, so that was way back then. And now in the DSLR stage of life, we don't have to do that anymore. We use basically the sensor. So we're going back here to the sensor, and what happens is the light travels through the lens, through the aperture ring or the aperture hole or the hole of the box, and it opens, the shutter opens up, right? So it opens up and allows the light to come in, and now the image sensor is what actually records the image that the camera is actually looking at. So it's the image of the object that when you look through your camera, you see, like even myself, I'm the object. The sensor is what actually records what you see. So we don't need the film anymore. We don't have to worry about actually opening up the back of the film and worrying about, oh, dang, I overexposed, because the light, the way the camera was made, it was to actually, back in the day, it was actually to keep the light from coming in so that the film wouldn't get spoiled. But we have the sensor now that when even if you were to take the lens off the camera, it still would not spoil the image, because the sensor was recording, and the recording goes to your CF card or your FD card, or the different types of cards that they have for whatever camera that you do use. Okay, so I hope you understand what it is, how the camera works, and I hope I broke it down as layman as I can, so you can understand how the camera works and what a camera is. So feel free to ask more questions, to leave a comment, and definitely subscribe. So I'll see you next week. Teddy Michener, House Photography for TIFF TV. Bye.